So what wants to be addressed today has to do with the release of the Epstein files. It's very heavy. I feel literally ill when I think about it. What needs to be said first is that it's not an accident, it's not happenstance, it's not peripheral, it's not incidental. It's not something to just dismiss as like a juicy story or I've even heard people say it's like, oh, those women were looking for trouble or nonsense like that. But I've also heard people dismiss it in a political sense as if it's something that like only the right wing cares about or something like that. But what needs to be said is that what's coming to light is the extent of not just the corruption, but the degradation and the literal demonic energy underlying the powers that were, right? And this is why it's coming to light right now, because those powers are falling, because people are waking up, because more and more and more people have seen through the illusion. There's the appropriate energy and momentum right now for that information to come to light. So, as disheartening as it might be, it it's like, it's not that it's good news, obviously, but it can only be because the tides are turning, right? So yes, through the revealing, we create something better, but also the revealing was only possible because so many people are waking up. So that's what needs to be said first, those 2 points, right? This isn't something to dismiss. This is characteristic of the very foundations of the structures of power globally. And it's shifting right now. There is a large mass of humans, a large mass globally, who desire change and are taking action in that direction towards something better, both internally in the way we not just think, but see, like the very willingness to look at this kind of stuff, the many years of work that many people have been doing around being willing to face the darkness, right? Sometimes we have this idea that spirituality is about, not attending to that kind of stuff. And while, yes, it's, you know, not necessarily healthy or helpful to like obsess over the darkness, to get paranoid, to, you know, lose ourselves in it. So that's not it. But being willing to face the truth is necessary as we wake up spiritually. Part of our work here is precisely to be willing to bring our light, our consciousness, our awareness to the darkness, right? We create a better world. We assist in the rising of consciousness, through bringing light to the darkness, through turning our attention to, what is dark, what has been in the shadows. And it's only through that act of being willing to face it that light comes to those places, right? That light comes into the shadows and the shadow is no more. Okay, so many of you here know that already, but that needs to be said. Okay, so spirit, what else would be helpful here? What else do we need to know or understand regarding this? It's also not just recent. This is characteristic of human history for thousands of years. This level of degradation, manipulation, lies, coercion, control. It's not new, and we could understand it as an aspect of the patriarchy, okay? And I use that word because it's technically correct, but it's not about hating on men, okay? It's this energetic frequency of the masculine energy as dominant over the feminine energy. And that's sort of like a frequency that has been sort of imposed upon all of us. So, in a sense, we're all humans, in a sense, or like the vast majority of humans, in a way, have been victims to this, including men. So, this is certainly not men versus women. It's not even masculine versus feminine. It's it's a form of programming and control and manipulation and deceit. And it was actually done to us by certain groups. The distortion of the relationship between the masculine and the feminine. And what we see with the Epstein files is one manifestation, a very disturbing, dark one, of that frequency. That it's not it's a more like a pattern of frequency, right? It's a pattern of energy and energy dynamic, and it shows up in many ways. But the most horrible, or this is one of those ways it's showing up. So they're asking us not to lose faith or hope, and to see this as actually evidence of the turning tides, right? As both Saturn and Neptune move into Aries, it's like what has been allowed to remain in the shadows can no longer, right? It's like the last threads of deception and manipulation are coming to light now. So the message coming through is like to not allow this kind of information to put us into a state of fear or helplessness. We have more say over reality than we realize. And even though there was a way in which this was done to us and we were victims of it in a certain capacity, it's like it's how to say this, it's sort of a trick, an illusion. Like, yes, it was done to us, but the idea that we were powerless was always an illusion. So taking our power back and being creators of our reality collectively, right? Creating a more beautiful earth, let's say, was always a possibility for us. We just were tricked into this mindset. And a predominant way in which this was done was the like buying people off, basically, pushing people to kind of sell their soul to the devil in a certain sense, of coercing people into collaboration, and complicity. But even those people still had a choice. They felt like they didn't, but there was still a choice involved. So they're reminding us that our inner work around understanding the harmonious relationship between the masculine and feminine energies is precisely what shifts this dynamic on earth. And that is precisely why this has been able to come to light, because so many people have been doing that work of investigating these energies within and without, understanding them better, healing through them, and coming to that balance point of inner unity, of inner respect between the inner masculine and the inner feminine, of writing that relationship on an internal level, um, as well as external, of course. So yeah, the point is that not to underappreciate how impactful that kind of spiritual work is in this regard. So what's needed is not like a deep dive into these files. We don't necessarily need to know all the gory details. Let's not get caught up in the melodrama. But at the same time, let's also not ignore what is happening. Let's not ignore how dark and disturbing it is, and how connected it is to systems of power and governments, and not just like it's interesting that it involves powerful people from many domains, not just politicians, but um, you know, like artists and academics and people from many different areas. So it this dark energy has infiltrated every aspect of society. Okay, spirit, what else needs to be said here? What else is helpful? What do the listeners need to know? Okay, so protect yourselves. A simple way to do it is imagine yourself in a bubble, or they'd rather us use the word force field of light and love, of God's protection, of not to dismiss how impactful such kinds of intention and perhaps visualization and affirmations, to not neglect that, to not assume that it's insignificant, um, and to find whatever way works for us. So, a simple one is to imagine that we are in that force field of light, to set that up every morning, to ask for spirit's protection. Our words and our intentions are very key, right? So remember that your words hold power, and you can use your words to cast out any negative energies, to invite in positive energies, right? So, God or spirit being the primary one, but other figures that you may resonate with, such as Yeshua, such as the archangels, such as Mary Magdalene, and of course, many, many others. You're connected to Earth as well, and Earth holds light as well. Sometimes we think of Earth as sort of darkness, but there's a particular kind of light within the Earth that we can invite up into our energy systems as well. So work with Earth here as well. And she is completely capable of taking the energies and anything stagnant, anything we don't need, thought forms, we can send them to her, and she is so powerful. She can transmute that. We don't have to be afraid of sending our garbage to Earth. It's like how we exhale and the trees inhale, right? There's this exchange of energy, and it's like that with Earth as well. So we can send what we don't need to her and ask her to replenish us. Okay. I think that's all for now. I was going to pull some cards. I was getting ready to, but um, I think that's the message that wanted to come through today. Um, as difficult as it is, it can be helpful to attend to these things, particularly in a spiritual context. And for instance, I am already feeling better in a sense because we didn't ignore the energetics, right? I said I was feeling quite ill earlier on, and I still am to some extent because there's still a lot to process here, but some of that has been relieved. So, okay, that's the final message. So, thank you everyone for being here. You can find out more about me and my work in the show notes, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.